So for the children that I work with, I want them to have a level playing field and equal opportunities to all the other children that are in schools that have got vision. So that's really important for me, that they are able to access things, that they're able to have the same ambitions, that they're able to do the same things, and lots of things aren't designed for children with visual impairments. So projects that are designed specifically with children with visual impairments in mind are really important to allow them to do things that every other child can do. So if you want to make your science project accessible for children with visual impairments, I would say make sure that if you've got any colours there, they've got good contrast and it's bright. People think that people that have got a visual impairment are all totally blind, and they're not. Very, very few people are totally blind. Many of them have just got reduced vision. So bright colours are good contrast is good, noises are good, things that you can touch. And I think also what's really important is don't assume that the children have got any prior knowledge about anything, because having reduced vision means that there's lots of things that happen that we take for granted that those children can't see. So don't assume prior knowledge, don't assume prior vocabulary knowledge, assess that as you go along, and that's what's really important, to be able to make things that are accessible. I would think that the main consideration needs to be bearing in mind that if you've got a visual impairment, everything you do takes you longer. So think about the project that you've got, and think about the information that you want to get across, and think about the most basic bits in that project and start with those, and think about how you can make them simple, how you can make them tactile, and think realistically about how much time you need to be able to get that information across to a child that's got a visual impairment. I think one of the things that we do as teachers and as academics and people who have a lot of extensive knowledge in a particular subject, we forget what it's like to be somebody who's got absolutely no knowledge in that subject. So break it down into tiny, very simple chunks, but then have something in your back pocket that you can use if you are working with a child who really gets it and has got a real passion about that thing. But start off with really simple, basic chunks so that you're not alienating them right from the start. One of the things that I think is really important to remember is that all children, not just children with visual impairments, but all children are scientists from birth. They like to push things, they like to poke things, they like to chew things and taste things. And I think it's really, really key that we remember that children naturally want to do science all the time. If I drop this, will it bounce or will it break? Things like that. So I think they are the key elements that we need to think about. Children are naturally excited by science, but then often what we do is we start teaching them very intense science, and I think children like exploring and finding out things on their own. So instead of saying to a child, don't drop the egg, it will break, let them drop the egg and let it break. It doesn't matter. They've learnt then that if they drop the egg, it breaks. And so I think that's what's really important, to let children get hands-on and do things and learn things, because we all learn best by doing. And so being able to get your hands on something and touch it and feel it and find out for yourself, I think that's what's key. So one of the key things is don't assume that children have got any prior knowledge. And if we were describing something to a child that's got a visual impairment, so if we take the example of an elephant, we might, as a sighted person, describe an elephant as big. But unless we're comparing it to something, what does big mean? Because big might be, a dog might be big. People might say, don't touch that dog, it's a big dog. But an elephant's a lot bigger than a dog. So we need to make sure that we've got things that children have experienced that we can compare things to. And then if we continue describing an elephant, we might say it's got a trunk. But is it an elephant's trunk? Is it a tree trunk? Is it a trunk that Harry Potter might put his cloak in? Is it the boot of an American car? So I think we need to be very careful with the language that we use, and we need to be descriptive with words rather than just use a word and assume that a child might know what that means. And I think that's a key thing when you're working with students that have got visual impairments.